there are two different paradigms that are in tension within contemporary moral theology. They actually affect how we view the human person and sort of they represent how we see the world. In a way, it affects or it shapes the way we look at moral issues. So let's dwell first into these two paradigms. The first one is what we call the physicalist or the classicist paradigm. As the as the name suggests, it looks more on the physicality of things. And what do you mean by that? See, this paradigm sees that human nature is at some point, or not at some point, but then is static, it's unchanging. And one is moral or immoral if one goes against the essence of things or the essence of a being. And the essence of the person is anchored on his or her nature. So the human person, what's our nature? That's the first question that you would like to ask. And then if someone tells you, well, if you try to look at it, we get attracted to the opposite sex like any other creation in the universe. And it seems like once we get attracted to each other, we procreate, and that's it. So the moral order here is that, or how we judge the world or how we view the world is that one has to follow this nature, and thus there is that moral order within it. And this idea has actually dominated Christian morality. No, you would see there the argument against, that we are to follow our nature, and that's one way for us to be moral individuals. The second type of, or the second paradigm is what we call a personalist historical approach and historicist approach. And if you look at this, it's simple. It's instead of looking at the human person as its nature as static and unchanging, we try to know the individuals. We recognize that the individual has logical capacity, has a rational capacity, and could think for himself. And this new approach, this is actually a new approach. It's around in Vatican. It sort of flourished around the time of Vatican, the Second Council of Vatican, and it comprehensively considers the human person and new data about the human person. And it does not separate itself from science, from the social sciences, from psychology. And many of the social teachings of the church is actually dominated by it. So that's why later on you would have your church more social teachings, and you would actually look into this. No? So it looks at the human person as the uniqueness, no? of the human person, his own nature. And one way for us to really understand this is to look into how it views the human person in its 5 aspects. First aspect is what we call we are created in God's image and likeness. So it anchors itself first in Scripture, and it takes the first chapter of Genesis, verses 26 to 27. These 2 verses tell us that we are created in God's image and likeness. Nilikha tayo sa imahe at kawangis ng Panginoon. And what does that mean? That we are created in God's image and likeness. remember in the first chapter, or in the first discussion, one of our first discussions is that we have we discussed about the false images. We needed to appropriate or create a more authentic image of God. Not to create, but then we have to know who who God is exactly, because we are created in His image and likeness. That's something that we've learned from scriptures, and we've learned that God is a loving God. God is an intelligent individual that created the universe. And by knowing who God is, we come to know who we are. First is that God is the very source of goodness in itself, as Thomas Aquinas would tell us, that He's not some item in the universe, but then that you could just simply select a God that's good. No. From Him, everything that we see that is good, is we know it stems and it's from God. And because we are created in that image, then we assume that there's inherent goodness, there's inherent dignity in us that no one could actually violate. And second is that we are intelligent beings, capable of making free decisions. And most of our contemporary moral theology would stem from from this idea that God respects our human freedom. It's one thing that He has gifted us. Then second is that because we have this image that is irreversible, we are created in God's image and likeness, we assume that our dignity is something that we could not take away from other individuals. Cannot, by doing something to the person, we don't erase that dignity. That's one thing that I want you to be want to clarify, is that human dignity is not something that you erase. It's not something that's irreversible by sin. No matter how sinful the person is, that person has dignity. That's why the current stand of the church when it comes to death penalty is that no, it cannot be, because dignity or the value of the person does not decrease because of his actions. Human dignity, then, therefore, is also not reliant on human achievement. It doesn't mean that that I should respect you because you are a successful person, you are the president of the country. No, nor should I just treat you not very good because you're another poor individual. No, or criminal. Everyone deserves our respect, no matter who she or he is. So we don't discriminate people because they have Down syndrome or because they have illnesses, because they have coronavirus, because they're black, because she's a woman. And therefore, we have to treat everyone equally, because we know for a fact that person is created in God's image and likeness. The second aspect is that human persons are relational beings. One way for me to explain this is that during lockdown, I know you weren't able to see your friends, you weren't able to see your boyfriends or girlfriends. You're at some point isolated with the rest of the world, and you are simply with your family. If you're not with your family, you're simply alone. Now, that's actually really sad, right? But then, because of technology, we're able to communicate with our friends, and we're eager, probably some of you, every night or every day, you would chat with your friends, you would communicate with your friends through social media. And because we can't live in isolation, one of the terrifying things about the disease, COVID, is that we get to be isolated with the people that we love, and we don't want to die in that way. We always imagine I, for that matter, would always imagine my death as being surrounded by my loved ones. Because part of who we are is that we need to relate with other individuals. That's why when I observe my students, it's always by peer groups. It's not because I reject the individuality of that person. Rather, I appeal to the saying that tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Because we are at some point gonna be in groups, whether we like it or not. Even if you're the person who does not fit well with the other groups, then you will have your own mini group of people who doesn't like to fit well with other, or doesn't like any other group. So they're that group still as well. Yung mga, what do you call it? You have the introverts, they would also group. No? Even though they're introverts, they have their own groups, a group of introverts. And you have like a group of artists and all, because you want to to group. So that's why we respect people. We promote the common good for every group. We don't want to sort of say one group is over the other, and we have rejected the idea of slavery because one group is not dominant over the other group. No, it violates the fact that everyone is actually because everyone is fundamentally equal, and therefore the group that she is in does not exercise any moral ascendancy, or does not exercise ascendancy over others. Third is that we are embodied subjects. Now we are going to discuss the human person as an embodied subject. Now, try to look at it. Let's start with discussing the body. We have always dichotomized the body and soul. The philosophers in the past, and saints as well, would actually give the soul or the spirit an elevated status over the body. But they have at some point also agreed at the fact that, well, the soul needs the body, and why is it so? But then I want to reject that whole dichotomy thing, because it sorts of, but we will dichotomize, but then it sorts of remove the fact that the body and the soul are integral with each other. They are related with each other. And how are they integral with each other, and how are they at some point separate? See, we are our bodies, but at the same time we are not our bodies. We are our bodies in a sense that, well, it is something that who I am. You cannot simply separate it to who I am as a person. When I say I'm making, or my hands is writing something, or I'm writing, I'm not saying my hand is writing. I'm saying I am writing. If I open the door, I'm not saying that my body is the one opening the door. It's not me. So there's that integrity, but at the same time we view it as a property as well, a mere property, that if I lose my hand doesn't mean that I'm not anymore the Sir Ernest that you know. I'm still Sir Ernest. So there is that tension there already, that what is my body? You have to understand that my body is a property. I own it. No one owns it. No one would say that could I use your your body? It's something that I have, and not others would use. And then second is that because it's my property, I tend to take care of it. No, we take a bath. For the girls, you would have your 7-step Korean skincare to have a glass skin. So, and that's one way we take care of our bodies. We wash it. And if our bodies get hurt, we get hurt, right? So it's who we are. It's part of who I am. So it's not something that is simply a property, but it is who I am as well. But what does that mean in the greater context of as an embodied subject? But I am a subject. So my body is a subject. It thinks for itself. So what does that mean? We have to avoid a negative view first of our body. That negative view only punishes us, no, in a sense. Because you see, sometimes many people would say, well, the body is in many cultures now, they would present the body as somewhat bad, dirty, and we have to cleanse it. So any physical things that we do with our body usually ends up with the idea that we have to clean your body. But no, the answer is that our body we have to reject that negative view of our body. No, it's constitutive of who we are as a person. No, we get to know other people because of our body. It's our bridge to the world. We come to relate to the world because of our body. I am here because of my body. Although it limits me, I could not be there because of also my body. But then it's a way for me to bridge myself to the world. I get to know the world because of my body. I get to know that this what do you call that, tissue is soft, or the notebook is a bit, or this desk is a bit rough because of my body. And it's also my way to to sort of relate to the world. Because of my body, I get to know people. I get to know individuals. I get to know who they are as a person. But well, we have to understand that the limit of the body is that no, I get to meet other individuals, other subjects, other free being because of my body. But then the limit there is that, well, I couldn't be totally integrated with them because, you know, there is a boundary, and the boundary is my body. You have to understand, because body and the person are uniquely tied with each other, that we cannot take care of a person and then say take care of the person spiritually. If you want to take care of the person spiritually, you also have to take care of the body of the person. That's why the church has been very strong, or has been the largest NGO. If you would look at it, no, try to Google it, and you would see there what's the largest non-government organization, the largest healthcare provider. It's not the United States of America, but it's actually the Catholic Church, because it believes at some point that, well, the human person is to take care of the soul is to take care of the body. But then, you are not supposed to judge a person because of his bodily condition. A person who lost his arm doesn't mean that God is punishing him. A person who has coronavirus doesn't mean that he's a bad person. He's probably even a nurse or a doctor who's really in our front lines right now. You're not to judge a person because of their the state of their bodies. So they are not bad or good persons because of they're healthy. Like, for example, you look at a congressman, very healthy during this time of pandemic, doesn't mean that he's a good person. He's probably the baddest person right now, that congressman, no? Lalo na pag mukhang healthy, mukhang nagnakaw yun. Then another thing is that we are not supposed to objectify the body. We are not simply our bodies, no? It's limiting if you just judge a person according to his or her bodies. One of the saddest thing is that we try to idealize certain body types. We would say, oh, well, being white is better, being skinny is better. Yeah. No, it's not. We are not supposed to idealize certain body types. But then we also want to avoid promoting unhealthy body types. Doesn't mean that a person is already obese, that we just let him be who he is. But then we have to take care of our bodies. It's who we are. And if our bodies are unhealthy, how could we he's very skinny already, let's let him be, It's none of your business. No, it's not my business, but then at least I have to take care of the person and have to understand, But then one thing that I want to sort of promote here is that the tendency that we have to be the voice for those who are voiceless. Many people are being harassed because of their skin color, being abused because of their skin color, harassed because they are, well, women. And we have to be a voice for them. We have to speak out, because if you don't speak out, if we encourage the culture of silence, we enable these abusers, these people If we keep on accepting, like for example, the president keeps on making rape jokes or keeps on saying nonsense stuff, then we are enabling the person. We are saying, we are promoting, like, oh, it's okay to make rape jokes. And if you're a woman and you defend, you are silencing a bunch of people who you are sort of saying, well, let's just let go of these women who have suffered so much because of, male brutality, their toxic masculinity. How toxic could masculinity be? Because we encourage people to act like this, like the president, no? Siga, we have to use the word gay term as a derogatory term. we have already created that culture, and we have to remove that culture, and we have to speak out. But one thing that I've learned from my student last year is that speaking out is not enough in our society. But you have to, because there are many people who have really talked about these things. But the problem mainly is that people don't listen. We have to listen to these people. And once we listen, we have to become again the voice for these people. The fourth aspect is we are historical subjects. What do you mean by we are historical subjects? See, you can't say, for example, you compare a young boy around 5 years old and a 10-year-old boy, and then you can say that a 5-year-old boy who took 1 peso from your pocket is, or a 5-year-old boy or 3-year-old boy took 5 pesos on your pocket, you should you should really hurt that person, or probably the moral development. We have to take into consideration the moral development of a person. No, you can't say that like for example, I remember my girlfriend and I were walking in Rojas, and there's this crazy guy who is just shadow boxing, and then and then we're about to close in the guy, and told my girlfriend, you take this side because that person hits you. I doubt if we could counter, or just I could punch that person back, because well, if I punch that person, that would make me also crazy, for being aggressive towards people who have mental illness. See, we have to, we can't say that that person is a criminal because he has stolen money, but then he's a 5-year-old kid. That's different from a politician. No, minsan nga yung minor, we are very aggressive towards minor. I noticed that to the government, including in Daisari, was saying, mga batang yan, you don't know them, they could be evil as they are. But then, we have so many evil politicians, bakit hindi pa sila nakukulong? So, we have to look into the moral development where the person is. So, maybe the person is experiencing, sexual growth. Hindi mo pwedeng, you can't simply say, ano kang bata ka, manyakis ka. No, you don't tell that to a kid. You have to understand where he is. Probably he's already exploring his or her sexuality. And then you have to understand. That's one thing. You have to first understand. That's the key word. And then, we always have to understand the person can change. One thing that I hate about my family is that I don't like vegetables back then, but then now I love vegetables. Every time I visit my family or my relatives, they would always tell me, well, let's cook this and that because Joseph is not eating vegetables. And I said, no, I eat vegetables. I'm already 31. That's the 5-year-old me that you're talking about. See, people change. So we also, cultures can develop and change through time. So we have to avoid creating moral absolutes. Like for example, mga Pinoy, mga DDS yan. Let's pray someday that we get past over our present government. But I hope that day would be tomorrow, right away, or today. We change our president. That's it. And then, okay, we are fundamentally equal but uniquely original. That's the 5th one. What do you mean by fundamentally equal? I have already discussed that. We're all created in God's image and likeness. And obviously, you have to treat them like everyone is created in God's image and likeness. Another one is that being fundamentally equal is that everyone enjoys a certain universal human rights. So we want to promote that, and part of it is, our right or our freedom to religion, to express ourselves, right, to free speech, etc., etc. But then we are also uniquely original, and what makes us so uniquely original is that our background. Part of it is our cultural background. It is our identity, and we have to respect one's culture or one's history. Many Filipinos would ask, could I say the N-word? No. When I was young, I loved to, when I would listen to rap music, it sounds cool because you want to be a black person and then you want to say the N-word. But then we have to understand that we are not allowed to use the N-word because they have, because this group of people have a certain history towards it. This is a term that is used against them to dehumanize them, and it has hurt their race for a very long time. This black people from America has been dehumanized in history for this N-word. Why are they using it? No, because they're using it to subvert the meaning of the N-word. It's to empower themselves and to weaken weaken those who have used it against them. But we are not allowed to use it because we don't have that kind or sense of history towards them. And until now, that history still exists. It's not something that is in past. People would still use the N-word to dehumanize, to hurt, to tell them that back then you are my slave. You are something that I've been using. So white people, especially if a white person would use that, that would emphasize that, back then you are simply my property. We have to consider that. We don't say, well, that's not our culture, or we cannot say that. Well, that does not mean anything to us. That's part of their identity. Our identities are very important to us. We get to like it when people, for example, if someone would tell you, hey, Filipinos are the best, definitely you're gonna share that video, or probably gonna like that video, and then probably gonna subscribe to it. Although that person is only fooling you because he needed a subscription for his vlogs, to earn money. But that's it. So that's our 5 aspects that we considered here in Christian morality. And thank you, and I'll be giving you assignments.